You want to heat that whole piece up where it can cool real slow. If you don't have that oven or that grill, some guys put them in sand, lime, cover them with asbestos blankets. Just take a cardboard box and cover it up. Now, when I get through here, I also want to show you just how nice the machinability is. And I'm also going to not take the time to heat it up as much as I should, but you want to heat that whole thing up. I've heard anywhere from 400 to 800 degrees. I've even known some people to heat it up to 1100, which seems to be awful warm. But just heat that whole piece up real good, moving out from actually where you welded it right there. Remember, stress, cast cannot withstand stress. So heat it up real good and allow it to cool very slowly. Try and keep a cool breeze from coming in and cooling it too quick. All right, so we're going to come back here and take our file. I want to hold this piece right here for you, where we can actually see this piece right here. Now you can actually see just how nice a job on that cast right there that we can actually do. And your file right here, let me get right here where we can get a good grip on it. Let's try another file right here. Ah, there we go. Now you can see right there, I just knocked a little bit off of it, but the machinability is excellent. And again, if you can file it down and grind it back in, you won't have no discoloration on it right there. Torch does an excellent job on cast, and usually about 1 or 2 repairs, and you've actually done paid for that gun right there. All right, now we're through with our welding. We're getting ready to start cutting some light gauge and some heavier plate with a Henrob 2000. Now when we cut with a gun, notice that I've done taken my tip off. You have a little male plug right there. All you want to do is just come in and take that out. Now we have 2 different cutters. This right here is what we call our undercutter. This is the one that goes in from the bottom right here. All you have to do is come in, just tighten it up. It might be a little tight at first when you first get your kit right there. Just snug it down, never tighten it down real tight. As we cut real thin sheet metal, what they call the weld point or your weld barrel, we're putting the #1 tip on. That's the one that has 1 ring around it. The alt tip, which is our smallest tip, is going on the oxygen side. Now if you're used to cutting with a regular torch, you're used to cutting about 1/4 of an inch up off the metal. All right, with our particular gun, always make sure that your tips are in line right there. If you need to move them, you can just go in there with your wrench if they get out of a line. And also, as far as the thickness, that wrench right there should be snug as it goes through. That's a good filler gauge. The main thing, that oxygen tip right there should stay out of that outer cone right there. Now, when we get ready to cut, you're actually going to be heating with your heating tip. As soon as the metal turns red, pull your trigger and hold it in. But the whole key is to concentrate on the oxygen tip, and the whole key to cutting with our gun is that you must keep that oxygen tip within 1/8 of an inch of that metal. If you start pulling that oxygen tip off more than 1/8 of an inch up off the metal, you're not going to get a very nice cut. So the whole key is to concentrate on your oxygen tip once you start cutting, and you must keep that oxygen tip close to the metal. Also, when we cut, we use a neutral flame. If you got thin metal, a lot of common sense, just a small, thin flame. If you pull your trigger in and you get a feather right there, just hold it in and adjust it, because you always want a neutral flame even when you pull your trigger. All right, so when we get ready to cut, now also, looking at the metal, the book will show you also, as you start to cut on your metal, you roughly, and that's not critical, approximate, keep that oxygen tip, which is on the bottom, roughly about a 45 inch to the metal right there. That's not critical. You can still lift it this way, but that's actually where you get your best cut. All right, so always try and get 2 hands and try and get comfortable if you can. Heat your metal. As soon as it turns red, pull the trigger, and notice how close I keep that tip. Concentrate on the oxygen tip, and you must keep that tip real close to the metal. I want to come back and cut about halfway because I want to show you just how little we actually take out. All right, it's on that light gauge metal right there. What I want to show you right here, look just how thin. It's actually less than a hacksaw blade right there. So there's the front side. There's the back side. As long as you keep that tip down close to the metal, you can just about do away with any slag on the back. And that tip, where we cut on the outside there, is very smooth. A plasma cutter, which is a very nice piece of equipment, but also very expensive, will not give you any nicer cut, and that's just 4 pounds of oxyacetylene. Now, every now and then, this right here is a 1/8 inch piece of steel where we have used a 1 and an 0. That 1/8 sometimes is that one right on the line where you might have to use the number 1 to heat with and the copper tip to cut that 1/8. All right, now say you was going to come in here and cut a piece of 1/4 inch plate and still use the undercutter. You would want to come in and put the number 2 tip on your weld point and put the copper tip on the oxygen. Use your 1 and 0 for light gauge and your 2 in copper for your heavier plate. Now usually, once I get to about 3/16 or 1/4 inch, I like to go to my other cutter, which we're going to be showing you right now. Now when we start cutting our heavier plate, this is the only time that we ever change the oxygen. You never change your acetylene. Always 4 pounds of oxyacetylene for all of your welding and even cutting real light gauge metal. We're going to turn the oxygen up about 8 to 10 pounds for 1/4 inch. I'm going to cut some 1/2 inch plate for you. I'm going to go up to 15 pounds on the oxygen. If I was cutting 1 inch plate, I would only go up to 21 pounds. So the only time we change the regulators on the oxygen is just strictly for cutting. So just come over here, go up to about 15 pounds. All right, now we just cut with the undercutter. Now this right here is what we call the overcutter. The oxygen now comes out over the top. So this right here is the one that we recommend from a 1/4 inch all the way up to 1 inch plate. And the reason we like the overcutter is because it keeps all the heat away from our hand. So on the main weld barrel, I'm putting my number 2 tip, the one that has 2 rings on it, and I'm putting my copper tip on the oxygen side. All right, so you're heating with your main barrel, but the oxygen now comes out over the top, so we call that the overcutter because that's the one that we're actually going to pull. We're going to put it on the metal and pull. Now notice with the overcutter, the oxygen tip, you want to cut with it with the oxygen tip straight up and down. You're going to heat your metal. As soon as it turns red, pull the trigger in and hold it, but again concentrate on the oxygen tip, and even on heavier plate, it's very, very important that you keep that oxygen tip still within 1/8 of an inch on that metal. Now we're going to show you some cutting with this overcutter on heavier plate that you've probably never seen. We're going to show you several cuts that's just going to amaze you just how nice a job that we can do cutting with a heavier plate. All right, now also on your heavier plate, if you pick it up and that piece is cold, what you're going to do is want to go in and just barely preheat it just a little bit, and you'll get a much nicer cut. Also, make sure you got that same gap. Make sure that your tips are lined up just like your undercutters. All right, just sort of come in here and knock the chill out of that metal. Don't take but just a second. Now keep that little cone just up off the metal until it turns red, keeping that copper tip straight up and down. I want you to see right here what little slag is on that. You can almost throw that grinder away. You can see right there just how nice and clean on that 1/2 inch plate, how fast it heats it up, how clean it cuts it, and no slag at all on it right there. Now a regular torch, if it's set up right, can still give you a straight cut like that. But I'm going to show you a couple things right here that a regular torch would never do. Because a regular torch, you got such a large heat affected zone, all that metal runs together when you try and cut real precise or real fine with it. So we come right back. Notice just how thin that we can actually cut with that gun, where a regular torch would never be able to do that, and it's because of our two-tip configuration that we can do that. Now also, if you want to cut real close together, just to show you how close we can cut and still get a real nice cut, or if you want to cut a circle, always preheat that metal if you're going to come in there and just blow a circle out. Notice just how close together that we can actually cut, and notice how clean. It cuts just as nice as a plasma cutter, and a plasma cutter, when you get on heavier plates, slows down a good bit. As you can see, we can still cut very fast. Now, just to show you one more cut right here. There again, you can see just how little slag, as long as you keep that tip close to the metal, that's the whole key to cutting, you can see just how nice and clean it is. You can also look in those peaks and valleys, just how sharp, just how clean, and just how close together that you can cut. A regular torch would never be able to give you that type of cutting that we showed you right here. Whether it's a thin cut, if you want to cut real close together, you can do some very nice precision cutting using 50 to 70% less gas. Now, if you was coming in here and actually wanting to just cut a hole or blow a hole, it's just like a regular torch. You just heat it up, wait for it to turn red, pick it up just a little bit, pull your trigger and hold it in. You might want to hold your hand over it because sparks are going to fly, and it does that just about like a regular torch. Then you can go in there and cut that circle out, but if you're just going to cut a blind circle, sort of go in there and preheat it first like that. We have a gun that is completely portable, no electricity, no special gas, a 50 to 70% gas savings. With one gun, you can actually weld and cut most of your metals. What are you going to actually spend to be able to do all that? TIG, MIG, plasma cutters, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000? That's just about what you're going to have to spend to be able to do the welding and cutting that we've showed you here today. Now, there's local dealers. We have distributors like myself. We have the home office or someone you can get a hold of. We might come to your place, go to your place of business. You'll see us at a lot of shows. The only ones you'll see selling this gun are people that can actually demonstrate it and show you how to use it, because it is different than a regular torch. We thank you very much for taking the time to view this video, and if you have a friend, maybe pass it on to him. If you need any information, give us a call. And remember to have a new dance with an old flame.